All right, today we are going to talk about viral digital marketing campaigns. And today we're going to talk with Chad Warren when he shows up, but Natalie and I will have plenty of information to share about how we run viral marketing campaigns at Fanatics Media and what she does in the nonprofit space. I can't wait to hear what she's doing because it's so important, I think, to get people interested in the nonprofits and what you're doing, especially in some of the countries that you're doing it in. And I'm sure you've got a limited budget, whereas we probably operate for a much bigger budget with our clients. So let's get started. I'm Mark Fidelman, Managing Partner of Fanatics Media. Very excited about today's show again. And as a reminder, we're really about how-to content, not just fluffy conversations that take place. If you have any questions for Natalie or myself, or when he joins, just on the right-hand side, you could just hit /Q, ask the question. It'll show up on the left-hand side, and we'll do our best to answer it. And if Chad doesn't show up, we're going to start throwing a lot of people into this blab with us. So if you want to talk to either one of us, then we'll start answering those questions live. Please subscribe to Natalie and myself. Give props when they're answering questions you like. And let me give you a little background on Natalie. And when Chad shows up, we'll give you a little background on him. So Natalie is currently the head of marketing at Pencils of Promise, an innovative for-purpose nonprofit organization that is providing quality education in the developing world. And based on the statistics that I've seen, I got a lot of good friends that are studying this. What you're doing and what a lot of other people are doing are certainly working when you look at the stats overall. Would you agree with that, Natalie?
I would, and that's the goal. I think something that makes POP really unique in our approach is we pilot a lot of the things and test them and see if they work and then move forward. So our ultimate goal here at Pencils of Promise is literacy. There's 250 million kids that lack basic reading and writing skills, and our ultimate goal is to ensure literacy in all the schools where we work.
Okay, fantastic. And it looks like Chad's trying to join here. So Chad, are you there? Okay, I know he's trying at least. And Chad, if you can hear us, you might have to reboot your browser and try again. But Natalie, we're gonna jump right in.
Great.
And so the first topic is, what has been the most successful campaign that you've worked on?
I have two, and I define success by different ways. The first one I'll dive into is a campaign that we ran last year on, it's called Giving Tuesday. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It falls after Black Friday and then Cyber Monday, and then the charity's big day is Giving Tuesday. So how we approached it, we knew that every other NGO would be trying to make the loudest noise on social. So we really thought opposite. We're like, what is everyone else going to do? They are going to want to ask people for money. So we kind of flipped that, and we said, we know our users. We have a really big millennial following, and we empowered them with their voice. So through that campaign, we were able to get 50,000 retweets in one day, and we trended worldwide. We built two schools in a day, and how we did that, we got a corporate partner named Lokai. They make these really amazing bracelets. I actually left mine at home today, but they donated $1 for every tweet, and we kept it really simple. All of our successful campaigns are really grounded with simplicity. So again, our audience is young, they're millennials. We know that they don't have a ton of money to give, so we empower them. For every retweet, Lokai will donate $1 to build a school in Ghana. And we know really the half-life of a tweet is, I think it's now about 28 minutes. So we gathered a whole bunch of influencers to keep promoting the tweet throughout the day, and got to 50,000. So it was a really successful campaign. The takeaway that was fascinating to me, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did an analysis on Giving Tuesday and saw that we were the most talked about nonprofit on Giving Tuesday. And we had more chatter than Ellen DeGeneres, Kim Kardashian, and Ariana Grande. It's insane. I don't know how our audience did it, but we knew how to speak to them, when to speak to them, and what to give them to really empower themselves. So it was successful.
Congratulations. And we're going to dive into that campaign a lot more. And now, Chad, you're on, I assume. I see you. Can you speak for us for just a sec, see if we can hear your audio?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
Okay,
sorry
good.
about the tech challenge here today.
Well, I've had them recently. This is the first time I think in the last 4 weeks where I haven't. So I understand what you're going through. Chad, we just got started. I'm going to make a quick intro of Chad. This is Chad Warren. He leads the social media for Adobe's digital marketing business unit. He has a very diverse marketing background, as I do. You've built strategies for brands including Walt Disney, Parks and Resorts, Best Buy, Microsoft, and Levi's. Quite a diverse background, which is good because you're going to have some great perspectives for us as we go forward. So Chad, the first question that we have, and just keep in mind, this is about how-to content, but the first question we have is, what has been the most successful campaign that you've worked on? I know you probably have many, but the one that just immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, I think the one that immediately comes to mind, and maybe it's top of mind because it's more recent, is Adobe has a large campaign, and I have the experience that Adobe, when I get on an airplane, sit down and say I work for Adobe, they say like, oh, Photoshop, you guys do Photoshop, but we have this entirely other line of business called the Adobe Marketing Cloud, and we have a big campaign in market that's helping to drive awareness for that suite of products, and it's focused around this concept called do you know what your marketing is doing? And it's essentially what it highlights, things that are relatable to marketers everywhere about just things that they see in their own organizations or in other organizations that are kind of foibles or kind of missteps that people make. It's kind of bad marketing, if you will. And we had a recent, we've been putting out a series of videos on these. We had a recent one where we kind of highlight the exploits of this energy drink brand that we made up called Astro Boost. And Astro Boost, I won't go into too much detail, but Astro Boost does some, let's just say they make some missteps that will be very relevant to a lot of marketers. And as a way to kind of further drive through that point and also pick up discussion and get people kind of talking about these things that they're seeing all the time, again, in their own organization and others, we decided what better way to kind of bring the concept to life and really land it than to actually bring this kind of faux energy drink to life, like create it in real life. So we actually created Astro Boost, the energy drink. These are really for real that we created, and that they actually contain probably something that's not very good for you in there. But anyway, and we went to advertising week this week, where a lot of our audience is, and a lot of people who would really kind of understand what we were trying to do. And we mobilized the team of people, essentially kind of posing as this brand Astro Boost. So we gave away thousands and thousands of cans of Astro Boost. We had taste tests on the street and all these things, but all throughout had this ongoing thread of kind of prompting people to let people know that they knew kind of something was a little bit off about it, and that prompted them to kind of, well, what is this about this that we want to explore more? And what it ended up driving is a lot of people to kind of further that exploration, kind of discovered that Adobe was behind this and making and sending this message, really kind of asking a question: do you really know what your marketing is doing? Because here we as a brand are here to help you do that. It ended up, especially in a very noisy environment. For those of you who've been to Advertising Week and know, it's in Manhattan. There's a ton of huge brands like Google and Facebook there that are speaking and promoting. And we were just extremely impressed with it. It drove the #1 share of voice of that event. It drove a tremendous amount of social conversation and discussion. It was mentioned actually within a couple of panels on the stage as relatable examples where people were talking about things in marketing that they were doing. And it was just something that we were really proud of, both as an example of something, viral for the sake of better word, but also as an integrated campaign where we had various different elements that all fed into one overall concept. Okay,
excellent. And we're going to get into that. But my biggest question is, did you brew this energy drink at home, or how did you get hold of the
formula? The dirty secret I like to say yes, but the dirty secret is we actually found a company that was willing to make it for us, and we kind of built this little mini brand around it. And so they brewed it themselves. And as far as I know, it is FDA approved. So that's the good news. But it was.
How many did you give away?
You seem to enjoy it.
How many did you give away?
We gave away close to 10,000 cans.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, if you could only get to retail distributors, you might actually could make a business out of that. Sounds like.
So that's my side gig.
Yeah, exactly. Good. All right. So those are excellent. I'd like to bring up one that we did. It was called the Retiree Next Door. It was kind of play on the Millionaire Next Door. Part of this was luck, but we got a bunch of influencers, over 25 of them, to write about not only what they do for retirement, but and then we did a survey about what retirees do next door, and generated about 5 million views overall across the campaign and tens of thousands of site signups. And as we go through this list of things that we're going to discuss today on how we did that, I think you that are watching now would be pretty interested in how we did this basically on a bootstrap budget. But our next topic, and let's start with Natalie again, is how did you come up with the ideas, or how do you come up with the ideas for your digital marketing campaigns? I mean, you're a nonprofit. Let's just emphasize that again. So you don't have the big budget that maybe Adobe does or our clients do. So how do you come up with the ideas? Is it looking at it from a financial perspective first, or is it let's just explore the universe of ideas and then start from there?
Yeah, my background isn't in nonprofits. I never honestly thought I would work for a nonprofit, but really what drew me to POP is POP, standing for Pencils of Promise, is the organization's ability to storytell in a way that regular brands can. I came from publishing and worked in magazine publishing, and I think it's really important. Marketing is marketing across all industries. You have to approach it in the same way. What's our goal? You have to get scrappy with it. I think the greatest part about being a nonprofit and when approaching things, people rarely say no. Like, people will always listen, see how they can help, and we're pretty scrappy about the way we work. We aren't afraid to ask people what they can contribute, but really a lot of our marketing campaigns are little lift. They don't take a lot of money, and we look at organizational goals. So for an example, last year, our goal was to let all of our supporters know that, literacy has been very important for Pencils of Promise. Historically, everyone knew us as a school building organization. So we really rallied our supporters around one day, which was International Literacy Day. So we combined offline activations. We lit up the Empire State Building like a pencil with Gayle King. And we had various just activations throughout the day that drove to online chatter. So what we've seen with our campaigns is you need to have a time period where it's concentrated. So that just drives some urgency with our supporters, whether it's a day or a week. We've seen the best success within 24-hour periods. But we really approach it like that. What do we want to accomplish? Let's set a goal to get it done. And when does that need to happen? And aligning with International Literacy Day was huge for us in the Empire State Building. It was great.
But how did you come up with the ideas for that campaign, the one that you started with originally? I mean, is it everyone around a whiteboard? How did you come up with the ideas?
To be honest, it's just, we have a team of about 5 now on the marketing team. And the first example I gave was Giving Tuesday, just all of us sitting in a room. What is everyone else doing? I'm like, we can't do that. There's no way that we aren't the biggest NGO out there. But what is our strength? Our strength is social media. So how do we empower our audience? And we have quite a few Gen Zers that support us. And those people will really rally behind an idea if we give it to them. Keep it simple, give them gratification, and give them urgency. And really, it was just all of us sitting in a room, and we didn't think of it till a week before, to be honest. So it's always some last minute planning, but really you can't force creativity. The ideas just flow when I think that there's some urgency, at least on our end.
And are you thinking ahead of time, how do we make this as viral as possible? Are you thinking through that when you're coming up with your ideas, or is that not on the table at that point?
Yeah, I think with every big campaign, social is kind of the sweet spot for us. So it's always, how do we trend? Who can be involved? We have quite a few influencers that support Pencils of Promise. So can they be involved that day? What time do we need to time everything? So definitely, that's always a component of it.
Okay, and we're gonna dive into that, especially the influencer part, in just a minute. So Chad, obviously you're in a little different situation. You're probably in a very similar situation to me. You've got Adobe. that you can work with to make, to put some real muscle behind these things. But how does the Adobe team come up with the ideas for their campaigns? Walk me through that kind of process.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, we have both an internal group of people that we kind of solicited internally. I mean, to your point, I mean, we do have the benefit of having a large organization that we can tap, and we have a group of people that we bring together, and they're not necessarily the social experts or the creative director or whoever it is. We have a number of people who want to be involved in coming up with ideas, because we kind of recognize, as I think a lot of people do, that good ideas come from anywhere. And so what we do is we structure, in addition to having, some agency partners that we work with that have good creative talent. We know that there's good creative talent there. We have, I think, generally our best ideas, sincerely speaking, come from just anyone and everyone. And in fact, what we've started to mobilize is, in addition to having these cross-functional different people, and they don't even all have to be within marketing, attend our different brainstorms for our upcoming campaigns. We've started to incentivize them by basically saying, like, hey, you come up with an idea, if we mobilize it, we'll give you some kind of, we'll find a way to give you some kind of bonus. So you get a little bit of a kickback if you're an employee, whether you're in PR or email marketing or product management or whatever. We're just gathering ideas, and again, we do have, in addition to that, we do brief our agency teams. One thing I think is interesting about noting there in terms of kind of process and approach is, I know in the past, we've kind of gone into things saying like, we need a social agency. We need an agency who's really, really good at social stuff. And what we found, I think, is, as more and more people are finding, is that there is, I'm not even sure if there is really such thing in a pure sense. I mean, really, there are a lot of, smart thinkers and creative thinkers out there that just can kind of get outside of your problem, but labeling as social, we haven't found that that's actually given us any kind of tangible benefit. Beyond that, from a process and approach standpoint, we always like to go into our different campaigns and our process with kind of level setting around a handful of ideas. And there's a handful of them, but the key ones, just to kind of keep it simple, are number one is just that, is keeping things simple, is, ideas. If you can't explain it, on the elevator ride down, or on your way out of the building without someone understanding it, then, it's not worth doing. The other is, we talk about, like, how is it evoking emotion? Like surprise, delight, joy, empathy, and things like that. Cause marketing is obviously a great example of that. And then the other one that we always really try and key on, and this is kind of generally a marketing approach for us here at Adobe, is what we like to call inspired by now. In other words, what is happening today in the world that makes it right for this thing to happen? And I think that that's another big key. So we're always thinking about, like, it's like, how does this relate? And there's a fine line, right? Because I kind of cringe sometimes when I see, and I think as we all do, irrelevant attempts to kind of insert yourself in culture. And so, like what I like to call culture jacking. And so, like, we try and draw this fine line, is like, where are the relevant opportunities, for Adobe to kind of step in and have something to say, where we can be a voice of authority or relevant, but is also related to kind of what's happening culturally and with trends and things like that in the market.
Are you guys looking at any voice of the customer data or personas and kind of overlaying your campaigns with those people in mind, or do you not take it to that extent?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's maybe one of the benefits of a large company with a relatively well-developed kind of marketing approach, is we both have marketing personas. We have also a lot of research on those and are talking to those individuals, both in a variety of different ways, because we have a research team that helps us do that. And so then it helps us kind of understand, like, this, do you know what your marketing is doing campaign? It's one of the things that that we're doing, is we're obviously going and kind of poking fun, right, at these kind of foibles and missteps that marketers make all the time. And there's kind of a fine line you have to draw there, right? Because you also have to really nail the person that you're talking to. Otherwise, it just either goes over somebody's head or the point is missed. But then you also have to be sensitive in saying that, hey, we're not really trying to make fun of our customers or our prospective customers. Although one of the insights there is that we found is that especially, and this is, I think, is relevant to a broader conversation about what works virally and in social, is this notion is that when we kind of poke fun at things and levity, what I think that we've discovered is that when you see something that looks familiar, you never think that it's you, right? It's always, oh, somebody else is doing that. I would never do that. When sometimes, unfortunately, it is actually us that exhibits that behavior.
Okay, great answer. Natalie, so once you've decided on the campaign that you're going to run, or campaigns, as a nonprofit, I know I want to keep emphasizing this because there's a lot of, the criticism I get is I talk about big companies a lot, not small companies. So how do you make sure that the execution of these campaigns is organized and ultimately effective? Are there certain tools you're using, processes that you have in place, workflows? Kind of walk us through how you ensure that the campaign, once the idea has been figured out, how you walk through and make sure that the campaign's executed well. Because the number one thing that we see when we survey small businesses is their inability to execute because they don't have the right systems, processes, and people in place.
Well, luckily, like I said, we're a pretty scrappy team. And usually once we conceptualize a campaign, the first question for me is, who can we partner with to help elevate our campaign? So first it's lining up corporate partners or brand partners. So for International Literacy Day, because literacy was the focus, we partnered with Pocket. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're an app where you can read it later. I love it. I use it all the time on the subway because they promote literacy. The Skim, they're a daily newsletter, and they partner with us too, as well as Kid President, who's an online personality, and then New York on Air, which was a helicopter ride that takes you up in the air, and they shot the Empire State Building. So I think, just the outlook, the hardest thing to lock down is a partner to help elevate it. So that's usually first. And then second is the communication plan and the messaging. So that's emails, which are always kind of in tandem with our social. But usually it's planning those things first. And luckily, we have some very organized people here on the marketing team. We also use Salesforce. So our project management tool is TaskRay. So I get emails every morning at 7:30 telling me everything I haven't done. So that's always a good reminder and just a good project management tool that we use here.
Well, you brought up a number of things I want to dig in a little bit more. When you line up a partner, who's making that call and what's the pitch?
It's me. And usually it's just the marketing team in a room like, hey guys, what's our goal for this campaign? Cool, it's literacy. What are brands that we'd be proud to be associated with that, will elevate one another's platforms? I think the bad rap that NGOs get is that we're always asking for things, and it doesn't always have to be a monetary gift. Like the brand alignment is just as important for me. So being aligned with the Skim and being exposed to all of their readers, and same with Pocket, they featured our International Literacy Day piece to their entire audience. It's just making sure there's alignment, and it really needs to be a true partnership. We're like, this is the value that we can bring to you, and here's the value you can bring to us. And historically, we've had certain thresholds even for our social media where we've been able to monetize a tweet. So usually with most corporate partners, it's about $25,000 before we'll promote you on social media. So it's been a really useful tool to just help monetize our sacred social following.
Well, let me give you an example. You brought up the Skim. What is the value to them that you're telling them, hey, if you partner with us, this is what you get out of it? What are you saying?
So we offered them placement on our website. We offered them a post on Instagram. We actually both were at the NASDAQ and rang the opening bell together for International Literacy Day. So it was just great co-promotion for both. And then we spoke about them when Gayle King lit up the Empire State Building for us. So it was just more exposure to our audience. Even though we do speak to the same, I think, really millennial group, we just both saw value from it.
Okay. All right, Chad, so different perspective, large company. Adobe makes tools that help manage the process of these campaigns. So can you walk us through what you do once a campaign has been decided on and approved? What happens next?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to, I hate to have not like a really super sexy, answer to this. I'd like to say there's some secret sauce to it, but the reality is we put, a lot of these campaigns, it's especially social campaigns where you're pulling off something experiential or things like that. They have, as I'm sure it's like have so many moving pieces to them, and so we just put this massive point of emphasis on making sure that we're taking the time to make sure that we're mapping out kind of all the different streams of work, and that we have a very, very strong cadence of communication throughout the process. And unfortunately, I'm not, I don't feel like I need more meetings in my life. I don't want more meetings. I work at a large company. We were already inundated with that. But what we're finding is that having very, very kind of frequent scrums, as we kind of loosely refer to them, on these campaigns, and we're looking at and really, documenting. I mean, we don't go as far as, I don't know if we go as far as Gantt charts and fancy stuff like that, but I mean, a spreadsheet and some Elmo grease, right, and a good documented project plan, and then very, very frequent, again, high point of emphasis on in-person communication where possible, just to make sure that we're kind of signing off on all the right pieces, because it never surprises me with the number of these campaigns that we've run, that, there is, every time you think that you got everything nailed, there's always things that come down at the end where it's like, oh, we haven't handled that. We need to take care of that. And so it's just keeping that kind of stream of communication and, keeping things documented, everybody looped in, just seems to kind of do the job,
Yeah, and I haven't seen Natalie's tool. I think I want to look at that. But we use Basecamp and Google Docs primarily to manage everything that we do. Google Docs is very flexible, and the client can see it, and we can see it. So we need tools that both the client and us can work on. And the Basecamp Google Docs thing is a pretty good strategy. I wouldn't call it best in class, but in order to get best in class, I haven't seen a tool that brings the client in and us in at the same time. Besides the two that I just mentioned that we like anyway. So if you've got any ideas, please put them in the columns on the right-hand side. So
just to
Natalie,
jump really quick.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, Chad, we do scrums too, and I find them so really helpful during campaigns, especially in that like crunch time, like the 2 weeks leading up to it. We actually do morning scrums here as a leadership team, and it's always just helpful to know what all different departments have going on. So I really actually prefer in-person more than online. So just echoing you, the scrum's been really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, a Basecamp and the different tools. And don't get me wrong, I mean, those are really critical as well, but just kind of getting together frequently enough, because so many things happen that if you're not making it frequent, it's like, it's, kind of gets lost.
Yeah, and I never said I did everything. When TaskRate emails me, I see it. But if I'm in a scrum and I have accountability with people around me, it definitely is going to get done. So in person, my preference.
Very good. Okay, so Natalie, I'm going to start with you again. I used to think that content was king. Now I think content is queen because distribution is king. So you've got a campaign, you've put the processes and people and resources in place. I know you've mentioned you use influencers. What else do you do to ensure that this message, your campaign reaches the right target audience in the largest amounts so that it has the maximum potential to go viral?
Something that the approach we took for Giving Tuesday, and the tweet was, retweet for a good cause. For every tweet, $1 will go towards Pencils of Promise, thanks to Loci. So that tweet actually took us, I think, 2 hours to craft, which, why? That's the easiest thing in the world. But the simplicity of it was so important, because even if you aren't a pop supporter, we wanted you to read it. We wanted you to know what this tweet would do. And it was just so simple. So I think that content still is really important, but also the distribution of your content. Like, how simple is it? There's so many different things that we read. There's so many platforms. I can't tell you at one time when I'm on my phone, I'm reading Pocket, I'm looking at Snapchat, I'm doing 5 other things. So you have like 2 or 3 seconds to really capture someone, whether that's in a headline or just your overall messaging. So I think they really have to go hand in hand. So when we create it, it's simplicity. When we distribute it, did we get it in front of your face and do you understand it in less than a couple seconds?
So it's just Twitter? You're not using PPC or SEM or any kind of other paid distribution?
No, we don't do any paid distribution. We tried it for the first time for our holiday campaign and found it to be really successful. But Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and we're on Snapchat too, but that's harder. You can't really track that yet. We haven't figured out a way. But that's really
YouTube?
The key.
What about YouTube?
YouTube, yeah. YouTube isn't one of our key platforms that we use a ton. We have a lot of YouTube influencers that support us, and they push our message out through their channels. But Pencils of Promise YouTube's usually more crafted videos that we do for certain campaigns. So we don't utilize that as much.
Okay. All right. But no paid. It's all through influencers and your own social efforts?
Yeah, those influencers are magic.
No, they are magic. There's no question they're magic, but not to support it with PPC. That's pretty incredible when you have the results.
If you don't have the big ad budgets, you can't rely, I respect where you're coming from. It's, I've had to fight for years just trying to overcome the perception that social is free, even in a large organization. Just because we have big ad budgets doesn't mean I get a big chunk of it.
Right. And it feels so special because it's a listening tool more than anything. It's the only two-way communication stream that we have direct with our audience. Like, cut out everyone else. Like, how did you perceive this? How do you feel? Are you liking our messaging? And we can talk right back to them. And it's so special on Snapchat too. I can't tell you how many people reach out to us on Snapchat and we have direct conversations. So social is king. Okay.
And Chad, so walk us through your distribution strategy. Is it different than Natalie's? Do you have a budget? What do you do to ensure or to maximize the potential for virality for your campaigns?
Yeah. Like I said, and I kind of probably sounded half joking, but I'm, in many ways I'm serious, and it's all relative, right? We actually really struggle even at a large company, securing enough budget, especially because I'm one of these people that, that believes that, that doing things kind of purely organic, just putting something out there and hoping it sticks is a pretty tough proposition in today's world. I mean, organic reach is just dying. And so we have a number of ways. One of them I kind of already mentioned around, I kind of already alluded to, where at the core of a campaign, a lot of times what we like to do is think about where there's an opportunity for us to kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of piggyback off of some kind of relevant gathering or industry event. Like I mentioned that campaign we did, and we said, hey, there's an opportunity. We can go to advertising week. It's relevant for us. It's relevant for our audience. And that kind of helps because you have all these people gathered in the same place, and there's an opportunity that you can kind of ignite and activate those individuals. So that's one. And that kind of starts at inception. In terms of kind of pure distribution on kind of, okay, we got it all together and we want to get it into market, I would say, number one, we are believers in paid. We do put a real high value on using paid social in particular, just due to the very kind of highly targeted capabilities and the fact that anything that is kind of participatory or social in nature, it's right there within the social network. So it has kind of the reach and potential impact of like traditional display or search, but you can use it to help activate people. So we're good friends with Twitter when it comes to paid campaigns. I'd say another big one for us is that, in addition to like influencer outreach and partnerships, which were already mentioned by Natalie, is we are very, very big on press outreach, on traditional press outreach. I mean, it's funny because it doesn't seem